Fans of Sonic the Hedgehog have a reputation. It's inescapable. Several times over, bad eggs in the crowd have given the general public an impression of the Sonic fanbase as heated, infighting complainers of even the tiniest details over any work the franchise has produced. And while I, as a fan, think that most are well-meaning and respectful, I can't deny that other Sonic enthusiasts haven't really been helping our collective case. It seems to me like fans go through phases of pointlessly mudslinging over the most unimportant of things. Right now the popular subjects are character writing and 3D models. Acknowledging that there have, of course, been perfectly civil conversations on these subjects as well, the heated ones remind me of way back when, in the era I first became a fan of the Blue Hedgehog, that the thing people clashed over the most was the series' English voice cast. Hey everyone, Skull902 here, and today, I'm gonna tell a tale of the Sonic voice acting Flamewar that took place in the 2000s. God help me. A little backstory on the subject. In 1999, Sega auditioned and hired a group of English-speaking actors to portray the Sonic cast starting from Sonic Adventure on the Dreamcast. These actors were brought on to be the vocal representation of these characters long-term, and, with a couple recasts here and there, stuck around until Sonic Advance 3, released in 2004. Signs of change would begin to show themselves the year before with the release of Sonic X, more specifically its English dub, produced by 4Kids Entertainment. 4Kids and Sega decided that, to keep costs down, the production company would use its in-house talent pool of actors to portray the characters, with the first round of castings trying to have the actors voice match the characters as much as they could. Ryan Drummond, voice of Sonic in the games, made an effort to provide his voice in the show as well, even offering to move cross-country to accommodate the studio, but was rebuffed. The lead role instead went to Jason Griffith, who got the brunt of criticism for his performances as both Sonic and Shadow at the time. 2005 was a year of change for Sonic in the West, as Sega decided that synergizing the cast of the show and games made the most sense, releasing the previous voice actors, without notice from what's been said in interviews, and bringing in the ones that 4Kids had hired 2 years prior. Some believe the turnover was sparked by the death of Eggman VA Dean Bristow earlier that year, but that was just a rumor. Sega had made the decision before then. Change, however, is something of a controversial subject in the Sonic fandom, and this change would be no different. This was also around the time that critics and mainstream media started ripping into the Sonic series, particularly with 3D games. With the internet being as edgy a place as it was back then, it wasn't the best time to be a fan of the franchise, generally speaking. I can't say for sure one way or another if that made the volatile ones more susceptible to anger, but I imagine that didn't help, not that that's an excuse of course. The new cast came in and you were either a fan of them, or stood tall for those that were replaced. Or you didn't care and just wanted a good game to play. If I saw a back-and-forth conversation about the subject somewhere, 99% of the time it would devolve into someone throwing an insult in there about the actors, the other person's mom, or much worse. Pretty inescapable no matter if you were on a forum, a dedicated fan site, DeviantArt, whatever, but I'm gonna focus on what it was like on YouTube after I got into the fandom. Attitudes on the subject ranged wildly. Guptil89, yes, the man of Average Human Mother fame, first became popular for defending the 4Kids cast and, believe it or not, was one of the most reasonable voices in the debate, simply stating his opinions and encouraging respectful discussion of the matter. Steve from Bellina Productions also got his first taste of fame with videos on the subject. I don't remember how mild or wild his opinions were, just that he was pro-Adventure Cast before gradually becoming neutral. Another creator, Pink Fox, regularly featured jabs at the 4Kids cast in her skits as a projection of her own feelings that they should be replaced. Jokes are one thing, but saying in legit commentary videos that the games coming out at the time were bad purely because Jason Griffith portrayed Sonic was quite a stretch, despite that having nothing to do with the game's functionality, and if it really was such a problem, most of them gave you the option to play in Japanese. But from what I can remember at the very least, she wasn't hostile toward anyone who did like Griffith and co. The same could not be said for Guardian Earth 128, whose anti-4Kids opinions were pretty hyperbolic, and had some heavily inflammatory things to say about their fans despite requesting that his own opinions be respected, with the curious addition that anyone who found themselves unable to do so should perform coital acts upon their person. But the most prominent voice in all of this, the central figure of the debate, was a man named Alex Ed Prince Stairs, otherwise known as Spax 3. Now before I discuss this guy, I'm gonna cover my bases with this little disclaimer. What I'm about to say is my opinion, based on what I remember from the time and the digging I did into whatever's been archived. I am providing commentary on the events being discussed, and am therefore not infringing upon anyone's copyrights. So that out of the way, Spax was an AVGN-inspired game reviewer that began on YouTube with his reviews of Sonic the Hedgehog games. Having editing software better than Windows Movie Maker was a near guarantee that your videos would stand out, and Spax was able to build an audience due to this. The reviews featured pretty lengthy rants about the 4Kids cast, with an extreme focus on Jason Griffith, claiming later that it was due to a couple rude emails that, as far as I'm aware, he never showed any proof of. The man cut into Jason, not even referring to him as human, instead loudly, angrily yelling into the microphone about how he was supposedly, quote, that thing who fucked up who Sonic's character is, and this one guy was on a crusade to get the 4Kids actors replaced, preferably with the original cast, but also suggesting what he believed were suitable replacements within 4Kids itself. And he was serious about it. Here is a real, actual photo of, and I can't make this up, one of many physical flyers he posted around his hometown calling for a boycott of Sonic 06 until the actors were fired, expecting other people around the country to do the same. Dude was out for their jobs, and if he couldn't convince Sega to sack 4Kids, he was gonna show that he could do it better, damn it. For months, Spax put together and hyped up his vision of an uncut dub of Sonic X that would be far and away superior to 4Kids' original showing. Better editing, better soundtrack, and most importantly of all, better voice acting. He was gonna play Sonic himself to show how it's really done, and if this quote and screenshot give you any flashbacks, you know just how well that went. The voice direction was lenient, to put it lightly. Mic quality was all over the place, and Spax had a very particular insistence on casting children to voice Tails and Cream, the latter sounding like she just got out of preschool. Truly, a quality of dubbing 4Kids could never bring to the table, because theirs was way more presentable no matter how you feel about it. Very shortly afterward, Spax found himself embroiled in self-made unnecessary e-drama, and the dub was torn apart by his detractors. Now, if the project had been handled with any amount of humility, it probably would have been given a pass considering the standards of online video at the time, but if you're gonna go out, beat your chest, and say you're making something better than an experienced professional studio can produce, you'd better be able to live up to it. It wasn't long after that Spax would soften his opinion on the 4Kids voice cast, but the vitriol toward their supporters and especially Jason Griffith would cement his reputation with those that knew about him. Among other things, but we don't need to talk about that. The bitter divide on Sonic's English cast started dying down upon the release of Unleashed and Black Knight, which showed, along with Secret Rings in my opinion, that these actors really did have talent. You'd still get some comments here and there, but by the time the cast turned over once again in 2010, the conversation had dwindled down to a few whispers. Sega themselves were very aware of the debate, though, and even warned Roger Craig Smith of it before his casting was unveiled. And while the fans moved on to virtually sparring over what Sonic's eye color should be at that point, the voice acting Flamewar's effect shouldn't be understated. Jason Griffith had an active MySpace account at the time, and was inundated with a barrage of messages about how horrible he was for supposedly single-handedly ruining the franchise. Ryan Drummond purportedly had a personal YouTube channel, and had some psycho post comments on it about doing utterly heinous things to him and his family that bear not repeating because he liked Griffith's voice better. To paraphrase another creator, Big L2K6, these were just two guys doing their job and did not deserve such treatment. Anyone who was a hobbyist voice actor in the Sonic space ran the very real risk of getting hate comments from people upset that they didn't sound close enough to the actor they liked, especially if the VA was going for an original take on the character they were voicing. It's probably one of the earlier reasons why I never did a Sonic voice demo back in the day, gravitating toward the much more standard reason of I was too fucking lazy in later years. And speaking of where I was when all this was going down, being an impulsive 13-year-old who just got into Sonic, it felt like I was one of the few to find enjoyment from either cast. I once randomly re-uploaded an episode of the Sonic Tales in late 2007, sorry Kai Sonic, using the video description to detail my thoughts on the matter. You'd better believe the comments section was a mess. I remember a movement by Pro Adventure Cast fans to try and get Ryan Drummond to voice Sonic in Super Smash Bros. Brawl, and I will admit here and now the sin of being one of the idiots to waste Nintendo's time by calling them over it. I legitimately don't even know why, since I liked Griffith. When the argument was dying down, I wrote a Griffith parody in my Sprite show to make fun of how stupid the whole thing was. It's such a weird time to look back on for me personally. I worked with Guardian Earth a little bit. Pink Fox was my friend. The first voice audition I ever did was for Spax's Sonic X dub, using my mom's Motorola Razr with its terrible camera and microphone to try out for the president, and remember the guy commenting that it was pretty good. Better than 4Kids by Spax standards? People I'm friends with today were involved in some manner. So when I see people getting so worked up, to the point of direct or generalized insults toward any that disagree about Amy Rose's character writing, or whether the points where Sonic's eyebrows meet are pronounced enough, it gets me thinking back to when these same things were being said and done in the name of the English voice cast. It was a prime example of how destructive the approach of legitimately hating others, putting them down, and or threatening them over such an unimportant difference of opinion truly is. There is nothing wrong with critique in civil discourse. In fact, it's healthy for the mind, and hopefully becomes the standard means of communication between the angrier side of Sonic's fanbase sooner than later. Thanks for watching. Be sure to comment, like, or dislike the video if you feel so inclined, subscribe and click the notification bell if you'd like to see more. For similar content, a playlist is right here. I have been Skull902, thank you for watching and have yourselves a wonderful day.